you sick of the sound you're getting over dominant chords and wonder what the bot players and great jazz improvisers are doing over them that makes them sound so good? Well, in this lesson we're going to have a look at a really simple technique to give you a pro sound on those dominant chords. So let's get into it. So could you hear that sound I was getting there when I was playing over the dominant chords? Now I was playing over a rhythm changes, which is a chord progression based on I Got Rhythm, and you'll know it from loads of other tunes like a Leo and Anthropology and many others. It's a standard chord progression that jazz players improvise over, but it's a really useful one for us today because it's got lots of dominant chords in it, and that's the subject of today's lesson. We're going to look at getting a great sound on those dominant chords. Now, you may have seen lots of videos talking about altered scales and all this really complicated stuff that you can do on them. We're not doing that today. We're going to look at a really simple technique that's used by all the big improvisers in their playing, and it's a really simple one to learn. So the sound I was getting there over those dominant chords was what's called an augmented triad. So you might say, what is an augmented triad? Well, an augmented triad is just a major triad, but the fifth is raised or sharpened. So for example, we might take a C major triad. And all we do to that is we raise the fifth. So we've got C the root, E the third, and G the fifth, and we're going to turn it into a G sharp. So it sounds like this. And you can hear it's got a really quirky quality to it. And there's some other interesting things going on here with the augmented triad. So if we think about the intervals that we get between each of those notes now, between C and E, the root and the third, we get a major third interval, just like in a major triad. But now between the E and this raised fifth, the G sharp, we get another major third. And if we go from the G sharp back up to the C, we get another major third. So it's just a big pile of major thirds. And this is a really useful for us because what it means, because it's completely symmetrical, is that if we can play a C augmented triad, then we can also play an E augmented triad because it'll have the same notes. It's symmetrical. So an E augmented triad would have E, G sharp its third, and at raised fifth, B sharp or C, just like we just played in the C augmented. And likewise, if we started on the G sharp, we'd have a G sharp augmented triad. So what's great about this is if you learn one of them, particularly if you play it across the full range of your horn, which I always advise doing, you'll find that you've actually learned 3 augmented triads. And that means there's only 4 of these shapes to learn, which is brilliant for us and really quick to do and really nice technically to play on the saxophone. By the way, the backing track for this lesson, that rhythm changes, and some of the notes from this lesson can all be found in the locker. Just go to the website and sign up. There's still a 14-day free trial. So how and why can we use this augmented triad in our improvisations? Well, we're going to apply it to dominant chords, as I said earlier. We're going to just apply the augmented triad starting on the root of the dominant chord. Now, one little thing here, make sure that dominant chord is a 5 chord going to a 1 chord, and that 1 chord can be any type of chord. It could be a major chord or a minor chord or even a dominant chord, but as long as you've got 5 to 1 and that 5 chord's a dominant chord, you can use this augmented triad. Now, if we think about it, let's take the chord A7. So the chord tones of A7 are A, C sharp, E and G natural. And if we play an A augmented triad over it, we get that root, the A, we get the third, the C sharp, and then we get this note, the F. Now on an A7 chord, the note F is a flat 13, and some people may call it a sharp 5 as well. But the flat 13 is a really important note on a dominant chord because it kind of defines what's going to happen when it cadences to the 1 chord, or what it suggests is going to cadence, because that's the whole point in dominant chords. They're preparing your ear for cadence. It's a perfect cadence. So if we were to play a natural 13, that would be an F sharp, so A7 to a D chord, and that F sharp would be telling your ears that you'd be expecting a major cadence because that F sharp is the major third of D major. Now, if we play an F natural, what that suggests is we're going to get a minor cadence. It'll be an F natural, D minor, the third of D minor. So that's what's really interesting about this, because when we particularly use it approaching a major chord, what we suggest is this sad minor resolution, but when we arrive at the major chord, we get this happy major sound. And that's a really nice contrast. It works really well in tunes that are very major, big major progressions going on through the entire thing, like All the Things You Are, for example. And this is a great way to just add a bit of extra colour and dimension into your solo. Bach uses it all the time. It's called a tierce de Picardy. He uses it at the end of tunes, finishes on the major even though it's in a minor key. Now you'll hear all the players doing this. Parker uses it, Brecker, Sonny Stitt, you name them, they use this sound, and you can use it too. It's really easy to learn. So let's look at some exercises we can do just to get used to the sound over our rhythm changes. So here's the chord progression for rhythm changes, and what you can see straight away is it's absolutely rammed with perfect cadences, 5-1 cadences. Now some of them go to major chords, some of them go to minor chords, and in the bridge some of them go to dominant chords. So it's a great tune to get used to playing this augmented triad because there's lots of chances to use it. So as we look at this progression, you can see in this turnaround at the beginning, we've got C major, then we've got A7, 5 going to D minor, briefly a 1 chord, and then we've got G7, a 5 going to C major, the true 1 chord of this piece. And then even in the bridge, we've got E7 going to A7, that's 5 to 1, and then A7 becomes the 5 and goes 5 to 1, D7, and then D7 becomes the 5, goes 5 to 1 to G7, which is the 5 of the key we're in, and it takes us back to C. So you can see there's loads and loads of perfect cadences in here, so it's great for us to practice this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to play through it, and grab your saxes and play along with me, and we're literally just going to play 1 octave up of the augmented triad, starting on the root of each dominant chord. So let's see what that sounds like. Great stuff. So you can hear it's got quite a quirky, odd sound to it, but at the same time a really familiar sound if you've listened to plenty of jazz. So let's try something different this time. Let's do that again, except this time we can play it in any inversion we like. So instead of just playing it starting on the A on an A7 chord, maybe I'll start on the C sharp, or maybe I'll start on the F, and I'll play it in different directions. You feel free to play along with me with this it doesn't matter if you do a different version to what I play, because all we'll get is a harmonisation, so it'll be like we're doing a little duet. If you're enjoying this lesson on Augmented Triads, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe, and don't forget to tick that little bell icon. We've been doing loads on the Augmented Triad in Sax School, and I do a series of courses called Explore Jazz where we work on different tunes and different ways of approaching improvisation, and our members have been loving working on these Augmented Triads on tunes like Take the A Train and All the Things You Are. So if you fancy having a look at those courses, then don't forget to sign up below. So you can start to feel how flexible it is when you play this triad in different inversions. And once again, lots of familiar sounds that I'm sure you've heard before in there. So finally, I'm going to play through the entire thing. All I'm going to do is on the non-dominant chords is I'm just going to play some basic chord tones, and on all those 5 dominant chords I'm going to play the Augmented Triad, and I'm going to do lots of different inversions in different directions, but I'm just playing that really basic shape. And don't forget, there was only 4 of these technically to learn across the horn, to learn all 12 keys of the Augmented, so it's a really simple one to apply and really easy when you look at the chord to apply it, because you literally play what you see. It starts on the root of the dominant chord. So let's see what it sounds like in a more performance-based context. So you don't just have to play Augmented Triads over rhythm changes, you can play it over any tune you like, any standard, any blues progression, anything you want, and it'll always sound great. That little quirky sound, really easy to play. So I'd really like to hear from you how you've used this Augmented Triad and what tunes that you've applied it over and what you think about the sound of it. I think it's a great simple sound that you can add to your repertoire of dominant sounds, and it just makes it all sound a bit more pro and a bit more interesting to play. So don't forget to click on the link in the description. You can download this backing track and the notes and see what else is in Sax School. Until next time, bye bye.